Hello and welcome into Fantasy Focus. Today's show is presented by Geico. Insurance can be hard. That's why Geico makes it easy with 24/7 claim service and on-the-go info in the app. It is easy to Geico. I am here with my best friends, Mike Clay and Field Yates. How you guys doing today?
Mike, you first.
Yeah, I'm doing great. Brought the Kelly green out today. Brought my helmet in from home. What a showing. The helmets look great at the link last night.
Oh, they did.
Wasn't quite the vet. I wish we could have played it at the vet. That'd be a real throwback.
With the AstroTurf included?
Absolutely. Yes, the concrete, right underneath this like thin turf.
Yeah.
That's where I spent my childhood, with the old helmets, watching know the Buddy Ryan and Rich Kotite and that sort of era. So Ray Rhodes, all those guys. So that was cool to see those uniforms, and it was cool to see the Eagles just take it to Miami because. Honestly, my objective opinion was Miami would win that game. And I thought that as late as early fourth quarter when it was still a tie game, close game. It seemed like Philly was just barely hanging on. I was wrong. The Eagles impressed me. That was their best all-around game this season. They beat a pretty good team. Miami maybe not quite as dominant as we thought, but still a pretty darn good team with a lot of offensive firepower. So super impressive by Philly.
We'll talk more about the fantasy insight on that part in just a little bit here. But I need to apologize to you. America, and our international audience, because I broke the live stream today. I have no idea what happened, but somehow it's my fault. So if you're wondering why you couldn't watch us live at 11 a.m. Eastern time, blame me. And the best way to blame me, this is a good watch this, guys.
Yeah, I like it.
Is to go either on Twitter or Instagram or TikTok and follow me at Field Yates.
Oh, that's how you do it. That's
and
what
just
it is.
tell me there. You can blame me. You just got to follow me first. No, more seriously, we don't have a live stream. Our apologies there. So if you're normally part of our YouTube fandom, absolutely love you guys. We'll be back tomorrow, Tuesday, but you'll still get the full audio pod. If you're watching this on TV, shout out television.
That's right.
Big Week 7-2 recap. And congrats. Seriously, that was a very, very impressive win from the Eagles in just some of the best uniforms in all of sports.
Awesome.
I've got a short list of like 5 teams that I wish would bring back their throwbacks. The Eagles are certainly very close to the top of that list with the Kelly Greens.
And shout out Ace Ventura. It was the Ace Ventura Bowl. It was also my Super Bowl prediction for this year. I'm hoping Ace will be in attendance when that happens because inevitably it will be.
What do you think he's up to these days?
Dolphins. I don't know. What do you think Ace is doing?
That's a great question.
What's he investigating? What do pet detectives do?
You know what? I have an idea. I just feel bad saying it because
is he looking for?
Go ahead.
He's
investigating what the heck happened to the Lions yesterday.
Terrible.
Sorry,
Field Yates.
Daniel.
Let's pay this off real fast, though. The reason why you're wearing a little thing there and why I'm wearing one of these is because we had a board bet. Tua versus Jalen Hurts. Mike and I took Jalen Hurts. We came home with the dub this week. Shout out to our friends over at Trophy Smack. If you want something like this, go check it out. You get TrophySmack.com. You get 10% off with the code FocusBelt. Field, unfortunately, you're wearing the FFL loser, which is tough. It's not even a loser here.
Well, I kind of think it contrasts well with my
pink?
highlighter pink.
I like it, actually.
Throwback sweatshirt, so I don't think it's that big of a loss right now. And I think it was fairly close, right? I think Tua was only outscored by Hurts by like 17 fantasy points last night.
It was a lot closer than what you had probably
17?
realized.
Oh, okay. I thought you were being serious for a second. I was like,
Mike had
I
this
don't
look
think
of
so.
consternation right there.
I was.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm pretty sure that's not true. That's going to be a topic for this week, though.
I'm sorry, 13
playing in the
fantasy
Northeast.
Points,
Interesting. That's three duds in a row playing in the Northeast. We'll get to that in a second.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. All right, let's dive in on this Lions-Ravens game. The Lions got their butts handed to them. Guys, these Ravens looked fantastic, starting specifically with Lamar Jackson. This dude put on an MVP performance this week.
The first signs of Lamar Jackson looking like the 2019 version of Lamar Jackson when he won NFL MVP unanimously. He was terrific. There was a stat that ESPN Stats and Info shared in which Lamar Jackson had 246 passing yards when under duress yesterday. That's the most passing yards that ESPN Stats and Info has ever charted under duress since they began charting it in 2009. A virtuoso performance from Lamar Jackson. If not for a certain other quarterback who I think either just eclipsed him, he would have been quarterback. I'm sorry, he's quarterback 1 for the week. My bad. Very close to somebody else. But quarterback 1 week for Lamar Jackson. And I think maybe the most encouraging part for Lamar is that while he did do his usual stuff on the ground, nearly 360 passing yards and 3 passing touchdowns too, Mike. We were told this offseason, this new look passing offense, we finally felt like we got one yesterday.
Yeah, 100%. And having a healthy Odell Beckham probably helped a little bit. Not big numbers, but he was on the field a lot more. It was a larger part of that offense, so they were healthy, for the most part. No J.K. Dobbins, but they're, they have a committee they like in the backfield. Headed to his 5th straight top 10 fantasy week is Lamar Jackson, so he's good to go. Also, do you realize he has 69 carries this season.
Absurd.
I mean, they've only played 7 games. That is big-time rushing production. I think he'll blow by his per-game pace from last season. So he's doing it all through the air, on the ground. And now they have a great matchup again against Arizona. So they should keep this rolling. It's going to be a tricky one traveling all the way out west. But
that game's going to be closer than it needs to be.
Exactly. It's just that's the nature of the beast. It's almost like Detroit. It's not like they traveled far, but going into Baltimore, into that environment, and the wheels kind of fell off of that team. It was unreal to see. I did not see that coming.
So Lamar was great. Mark Andrews was awesome as well. He had 2 touchdowns. Another big day for Mark Andrews, his second game with 2 touchdowns this season. Do we feel like we have clarity in the Ravens backfield? Because I think there's going to be this temptation to say, the Gus bus rolls along.
Stop
14 carries yesterday.
No, Field, let me tell you why. Okay. Can I tell you why?
I would love it if
First
you told
off,
me why.
if you start Gus Edwards, you need him to get in the end zone because he doesn't catch passes.
He's only done
that
twice this season.
And he did that this week. So, he would have paid off if you needed that. But on top of that,
he does catch passes.
He caught 1 pass for 80 yards. That's a 9-point play right there.
15-point play.
He did not score on that. No, he got a rushing touchdown.
He had 2 touchdowns yesterday.
He scored them both yesterday, I guess. Yeah.
He scored on that?
Oh, yeah.
I was pretty sure that he was tackled. Interesting.
You know what, Daniel? He was tackled, but he was tackled. But so
1 total touchdown.
One total touchdown.
Okay, you know what?
9 fantasy points.
I've screwed up the live stream, and I've screwed up a graphic so far. So you know what?
And your board bet. What's going on here, man?
You know what? I'm going to take the rest of the week off.
You know what? That's probably a good idea.
Fields on his bye week.
No
teams are on a bye week. Fields taking his bye week.
That's what it is. Yeah, that's so good. I mean, he honestly, this is one of those things. If you played him against a tough Lions defense, you did it in spite of probably wanting to, because this is not a kind of defense that we've wanted to play running backs against. But this week, it definitely paid off. If you did have to use,
I legitimately wonder, did he have 80 career receiving yards coming into the game yesterday? Let me find out.
I'm sure he did, but I
don't know, Mike.
But here's the thing: he had 15 touches, roughly the same usage as usual. His previous season high in yardage this year was 62.
Yeah,
he had 80 on one play. It was I don't want to say fluky because it was an impressive play, and you get that much volume. Eventually, you're going to have a few big plays, but it was business as usual for his usage. And we also saw a little Keaton Mitchell in this game as well. Yeah. So they might end up using 3 backs. The needle really hasn't moved for me for Gus Edwards. He's an RB2.
This is amazing.
Or a fringe RB2, more of a flex.
Yeah, I was going to say more of a flex as well. 28% of his career receiving yards came on one play yesterday. Gus Edwards has been in the NFL for 5 years. Shout out Gus Edwards.
Yeah, 5 targets this season. Just not a factor, and that's going to not factor in the passing game, and that's going to really lower his floor in fantasy. So, again, nothing has really changed here much.
Other side of this game, Jahmyr Gibbs was involved in the passing game. No David Montgomery here. Very limited Craig Reynolds as well. We saw a lot of Jahmyr Gibbs.
They're saving him for the playoffs.
That's what it is.
Cuts down thing, sorry. But this was the perfect game script for Jahmyr Gibbs. Although I will admit, I was nervous, and I get it, that Dan Campbell was born to compete. But it was like 38-6. Early in the fourth quarter, I'm like, do we really need Jared Goff and Amon-RA St. and Jahmyr Gibbs out there? No one got hurt, thankfully.
Yep.
Jahmyr Gibbs piled up the catches. So I don't think that 9 catches for Jahmyr Gibbs is repeatable, because I don't think they're going to be losing 38-6 very frequently, when it's also paired with, 11 carries for 68 yards. But more than anything, the eye test certainly shined yesterday for Jahmyr Gibbs. Looks like the player that we thought he could become coming out of Alabama.
Yeah, 86% of the snaps in that game.
Yep.
So we expect Montgomery to be out probably this week.
Probably
it's not for sure.
We have 9 bye.
They have the bye.
Yep.
Gibbs is a guy who, I ran the early projections and plugged in his usage for this week and then scaled it back a little bit. And he's like a top 5 running back in the projections. I mean, he had 10 targets, and his usage in the passing game has been huge all year, and he played 80% of the snaps. Really good offense, good offensive line.
Yep.
I mean, what does Al like to say? 5 box?
5 box running back.
I mean, he's doing it all, and they are at home against the Raiders.
Monday Night Football on ESPN.
This is setting up for a big game for Jahmyr Gibbs. I don't know how we don't rank him as a mid-range RB1 at worst.
Feels like Amon-RA St. Brown is going to continue to be there as well. This dude is just locked in as Jared Goff's
25 catches over the past 2 weeks.
He had 19 targets this week.
Ridiculous. I mean, obviously, game script was so perfect for them, right? They're down 28-0 in the first half, but 25 catches. Who cares how it comes? You just want those catches.
Fantasy managers, not for Detroit Lions. But
yes.
6 games this season. He has 5 top 15 weeks. He's 8th in fantasy points per game. So he's kind of what he was last year, right? Yeah. He's just hanging right around as a back end wide receiver 1, and we'll take that all day long.
He is Julian Edelman.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, let's move ahead. Talk about your Philadelphia Eagles
Let's go.
taking on the Dolphins,
Let's
Mike
do it,
Clay.
yeah.
There's a big question that I came in. Field, we had talked about this. I didn't have any question marks around A.J. Brown. I didn't have any question marks around Tyreek Hill. I wanted to see what the secondary wide receivers were going to do here.
Thank you.
And part of this, like, it kind of felt a little bit like we've been seeing all season long, unfortunately.
All right.
It was still the A.J. Brown and Tyreek Hill show.
Yeah,
sure
Mike,
was.
you do your thing first. Like you tell
the
me
Eagles
why
fan.
I should not be nervous about DeVonta Smith.
I'm a little more nervous.
Hey, there we go.
I moved
We
his
have cracked
target
Mike
share
Clay.
down. He, especially with no buys this week, he's a lot further down in the rankings. I'm definitely worried about it. He had a drop in this one. I mean, granted, it was a nice play by, I think it was Van Ginkel, came back and knocked
did.
out of his hands. But it's just like Jalen Hurts is locked on A.J. Brown and to an extent Dallas Goedert, and they're not quite as productive, especially near the goal line this year. It's just not happening right now. He's had a lot of duds. He early on, he had a couple decent games, but it's really fallen off. So I definitely have some concerns about Smith. I still think he's startable, but I do not think he's a lineup lock anymore.
Does he need to be like put in timeout, Daniel?
I
Is that
think
what
that's what
this is?
this is.
Fantasy timeout?
Fantasy
He does.
timeout right now.
But you know what happens? This is how it works, is that we tell you, hey, fantasy timeout for a week. Let him go think about what's happened so far this season. Come back motivated in week 9, better than ever. And then in week 8, he goes off.
That's what it is.
They're playing the Commanders next week, by the way. How's that for a matchup? Pretty
Yeah,
good.
A great one.
Pretty good. So but I'll just be the first to admit, as somebody who has DeVonta Smith, and I have enough wide receiver depth where players who are certainly inferior in terms of overall capabilities might like make a push to play over DeVonta Smith. I will be thinking about it longer and harder than I have in recent weeks because there are no teams on a bye this week.
If you want some reason for optimism,
Yes, give
A.J.
it to me.
Brown has gone 5 straight games with at least 125 receiving yards. That's tied for an NFL record.
With Calvin Johnson.
Yeah, and,
Yeah,
and
that's
one other
optimism for A.J. Brown.
No, but that's not sustainable. I mean, it's literally he's the third person to ever do that. He's going to come back to earth, and when he does that, who's gonna go?
Yeah, I
to?
mean,
It's gonna
around
go
like
to DeVonta
2025 when he comes back down to earth, I will then
maybe
turn
this,
to DeVonta
I would say
Smith.
probably this week it would be the odds on that he does not have 100.
Red zone question, Addison, if you're listening.
Let's go. Will A.J. Brown put up 125 plus? I mean, he's done it 5 in a row.
Yeah.
Field Jalen Waddle
put it on the board.
We saw he was limited. Obviously, he had a
Yeah,
back
back
injury.
in
so
and
like
out of
that-
the game.
Yeah, that was tough here this
I
week.
think the conversation, and Mike sort of hinted at it earlier, is about Tua and how much upside there is and which matchups we can forecast to be a little bit more difficult. He remains a 0 with his legs. That part is not going to change this season, but he's had 3 bad games this year for fantasy purposes.
Actually, 4. He's he has had 22 plus points 3 times.
Yep.
He's been outside the top 12 4 times.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
the split's wider than you probably realize.
So this we'll talk more about this throughout the week. Whether we think this Patriots matchup, which is in Miami this weekend,
Yes,
so not
back
in
home.
New England, without Christian Gonzalez, who was excellent the first game that those two teams played, is as much of a difficult matchup to move them outside that top 12 or not. I just think that sort of the Tua experience is one that comes with a little bit more of a roller coaster than some of the quarterbacks who, even if he's averaging more points per game than them this season, they might be a little bit steadier.
yeah, because he
week to
doesn't run too. That's going to lower his floor so much.
I think being able to have Jalen Waddle back as a part of that offense will absolutely help too. When he's limited, you can tell he's just not at full strength with that offense there.
No doubt.
All right, back here on Fantasy Focus. Field, why don't you help us pay some bills?
I will do that, Daniel. Are you overwhelmed by insurance or your fantasy football lineups?
Oh, yes, I am.
Okay, me too with the insurance part. So let's go ahead and make it easy. Get all your insurance in one place with Geico. Plus, get 24/7 claim support and on-the-go policy access with the award-winning Geico mobile app. See how easy insurance can be and go to geico.com.
For the ones who get it done, Grainger offers high-quality supplies and solutions for every industry, as well as access to product specialists who have the knowledge and experience to answer your toughest questions. Plus, their commitment to being your safety partner can help you keep your facilities safe and your people safer. Call or click Grainger.com or just stop by. All right, back here on Fantasy Focus, guys, we are going to make our way through. You can take that off. Field Yates, Mike Clay, Daniel Dopp, making our way through our Week 7 recap.
I do like the
Chiefs-
neon yellow with the hot pink.
Highlighter
With
pink,
hot
yeah.
pink,
I
yeah,
love
I
it.
got a
It's
lot
good.
going on today.
I like
going
it.
on there.
I'm on board with it. 2 good
Chiefs
colors.
and Chargers. I'm on board with Patrick Mahomes getting his first 30-point game of the season.
First top
Who would
3
have
finish
thought
of the season.
That it was going to take until Week 7 for Patrick Mahomes to see 30 points in a fantasy
Chargers
game.
defense fixing all.
That's
They
right.
are the gift that keeps on giving to
Yeah.
opposing quarterbacks. Dak Prescott last Monday night, but this one was a much more like Dak was obviously excellent last Monday night for fantasy, he also had 40 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown, something he hadn't done for a very long time. Patrick Mahomes had 321 passing yards in the first half against the Chargers. That's more than he has had in any game so far this season. Here's the important part, I think, for Patrick Mahomes as well. And defenses can certainly shift from week to week, as we are seeing right now with the team the Chiefs next play, the Denver Broncos. But if you look at Mahomes' schedule the rest of the way, and we talked about this like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it hasn't really come to roost, so to speak, like we hoped it would, very favorable. Very favorable the rest of the season. It's outstanding. Yeah. So great to see Patrick Mahomes get back on track. And it turns out, if you just throw the football to 87, it's going to work.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, you need
Travis
Taylor
Kelce,
in the house. You have to have Taylor in the house.
Stop it. Yeah, I mean,
you see them splits?
I did. Shefty tweeting about the splits this morning was hilarious. Some people are mad, but you know what? People just live a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, will Travis Kelce ever get old?
Nope.
Yes.
No, he'll be. He will.
Yes. You're the one person that's not allowed to say that. You're the analytical one.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're the voice of reason now.
Yeah. Will he, Daniel? You think he will?
I think he will someday get old. I think we're starting to see it with Travis Kelce. By the fact.
What?
Like,
wait, after yesterday?
12 for 179 and a touchdown.
I'm not talking about yet. Like this year, we have already seen Travis Kelce be banged up and feel like he's missed time. Like this is a thing that he doesn't normally do within his career. Right now, he's got a boost. He's got some juice.
Yeah. I don't know. Feels fluky. Feels fluky like
that
the
a
injury
34-year-old who's never missed any time in the NFL might eventually get old. Yeah, you're right. You're right, guys. I'm sorry.
My point is, of course he will someday, but I'm not worried about it right now.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm not worried about it right now either.
Yeah,
the question was someday.
But here's what I would say is like, so we can debate whether Travis Kelce will get old eventually. But yesterday was just, I know that it's been a while since we saw a day like this for Patrick Mahomes. What are you laughing at?
Nothing. I'm just thinking of like was Talladega Nights, where he's like, with modern science and medicine, I figure I'll live till I'm 120, 130. That's Travis Kelce. Like he'll be 54, still catching passes.
But this was seriously like it was for those that made the early investments in Mahomes and Kelce. I would argue that Kelce up to this point has still been worth that early investment because he remains that difference maker at tight end. Mahomes, though, finally paid off, right? Yeah. And you just hope that this is the start. Like, I know I mentioned this a few weeks ago with Joe Burrow and the Bengals, but they point to last year having one game that the switch kind of was flipped for them. You wonder if this can be the switch that flips the Chiefs' season. Weirdly, they play the Broncos again next week, who they played last Thursday night. I don't know why the NFL does that, but they play over the next 2 games before their bye. Broncos and Dolphins. Can Patrick Mahomes build into that bye with a couple of monster performances? If yesterday is any indication, he sure can, and it may be in part because they have a new receiver who's the real deal. Rashee Rice ran a season high, I guess a career high technically as well, 30 routes yesterday for Rashee Rice, their second-round pick out of SMU. He also found the end zone. Go to the waiver wire this week and add yourself some Rashee Rice because, while I can't guarantee you a touchdown or 12 fantasy points a week with Rashee Rice, if I had to pick a Chiefs receiver that I wanted to roster and start right now, it's pretty clear it's Rashee Rice.
Yeah, Mecole Hardman had a role in this one, 10 snaps, but Kadarius Toney only played 11 snaps in the game. It kind of came at his expense. Also, Justin Watson was out for this one. Justin Ross was actually ahead of both of them. It was MVS, Moore, and Rice as the big 3 for Kansas City. Pretty clear cut. Not even close, frankly, in terms of snaps played. So I'm with you on Rice. The only reservation there is he hasn't cleared 7 targets in a game. He hasn't kind of got over the top just yet to become a must-start every week, but he has been super productive. One comment I want to make about this week, it kind of feels like a return to earth sort, or the world is set right sort of week. Like the Eagles kind of reestablished themselves as a powerhouse. So did the Chiefs. To some extent, I guess the Bills kind of came back to earth a little bit. So did Miami. I forget where else I was going with this.
Not many injuries. That was good.
Yeah, not many injuries as well. But I feel like we just sort of kind of Mahomes obviously bouncing back. I just feel like
Lamar
everyone kind of
having a Lamar game.
Reestablished themselves, and we kind of figured out who's who.
Detroit back to earth. Exception.
Detroit comes back to earth a little bit.
I didn't need that. One notable exception, Field Yates. You go ahead.
Austin Ekeler.
Yeah, it was tough.
What do we do here? And Mike had a great tweet this morning. Well, actually, a crappy tweet in terms of the content, but a very insightful tweet. What was it?
What I just thought of now is that guy yesterday who was like, This tweet is way more valuable than anything Mike has tweeted today in your timeline.
Did you guys see this yesterday? It's actually really funny.
That's because all my tweets are like buzzkills about snap counts and stuff like that.
Well, so yesterday I came home, and on Sundays when I come back from the early slate of games, I go back and watch the afternoon games at home to help out with. I've got 2 kids under 2. It's mayhem from like the hours of basically 4 to 7 p.m. Yeah, you know that feeling, right? So I go back and I try to have as many devices available for watching. I've got Red Zone on TV. I've got the ability to watch a couple of games on my iPad and then also my computer. And I have my computer out and I was watching the game and I left but I also had Twitter open and my daughter and something completely ineligible. Like what's the word? Completely unreadable, right? It was like WLTR something. And I was like, God. And then so someone texted me and they were like, hey, you might want to check your Twitter feed. I'm like, here we go.
She retweeted one of them spam accounts.
Yeah, so she just, she was just pecking away on the keyboard, and then someone replies to the tweet, which again, it was like WLTR, something ridiculous, like a couple of like semicolons as well. It was like, this is more informative than anything Mike Clay tweets.
I'm just like posting snap counts and stuff.
Mike is actually helping, but the Austin Ekeler tweet was.
Oh, yeah. So he has
we were talking about something.
I forgot. We were talking about football on the show. 6 or fewer targets in 8 straight games.
Yeah.
Only 2
yesterday.
Was it 2 yesterday? He had I don't have it in front of me. Yeah, one catch.
So real talk
in the game.
Real talk, and it's been a terrible year for top of the market running backs, right? Like other than like Travis Etienne's been stock up, Alvin Kamara's stock up. Obviously, CMC's been amazing, but it's not like Saquon's been dominant. Derrick Henry's had some fading moments. Jacobs has been bad, right? Like relative to preseason expectations. So I can't say Eckler's on an island in that regard. But like seriously, like I don't know, Daniel. Like, how are you feeling? What's your temperature if you're the Austin Ekeler manager?
I have been waiting to get Austin Ekeler back, and if this is the performance that I get, it doesn't make me feel super great. Now, the one thing is that I understand the return to performance, right? Like we want to maybe like ramp him up back slowly.
But don't you feel like Stephania kind of quelched that last? She was sort of like, he's 100%.
Yeah, he played last week too.
I'm trying to talk myself into a reason why I shouldn't be so negative about this, but this is not the kind of performance that I was expecting, especially with Kellen Moore.
First time under 9 fantasy points and hit a longest active streak in the NFL, and it's now snapped.
That's tough.
And there was
you
a
don't
lot
want
of
9. You want 19,
right?
But yeah,
targets have been down. Keenan Allen is soaking up a lot of them short range targets. Not sure that's going to change. Josh Kelly's still involved. He's like now, of course, he's a long touchdown run.
Right, of course, Josh Kelly looks good.
Like for a month, we needed him in place of Ekeler, did nothing. But I don't know that Ekeler is an elite running back right now. More of a mid-range RB1. He did have he's played 3 games. One of them was a huge game in week 1, so maybe we're jumping the gun here. But they do play Chicago this week, who's struggled against running backs.
Sunday night football, baby.
Perhaps he gets back on track.
Let's talk about this, right? Yeah. Obviously, Austin Ekeler was kind of a disappointing performance. It wasn't the only one this week. Cooper Kupp, if you used him this week, outside of
I know what happened.
Puka Nakua, tell me what it was.
First 2 targets of the game for Cooper Kupp came in like the first 3 plays. Dropped them both. Cooper Kupp never drops passes.
Yikes.
And I was like, you know what? It's just one of those days, right? It's like, I don't know. Steph Curry like misses a free throw early and you're like, you know what? He might only go for like 19 tonight. You you dodged one there. He goes 3 for 17 from 3 and then comes back the next game and has like 9 threes. Whatever. The point is, Cooper Kupp, like I'm not making much of this one. Like he's going to have he still had 7 targets yesterday. The story today was like, Puka Nakua, baby. Undertaker gif.
Yeah. This is 2. They have 2 top 10 fantasy receivers right now.
Yeah.
Targets since Kupp returned 3 games, 31 for Nakua, 29 for Kupp. Next closest has 9.
Wow.
With Tyler Higbee. The running backs combined have 5 targets in 3 games since
the
their
only
return.
problem is Tutu Atwell is the only one that scores touchdowns.
Yeah, he scored the touchdown. That was kind of a fluky play. Did you see Stafford's reaction when they caught it? He was like, wow, I got lucky on that one. Yeah. They both have a target share of at least 35%. Most teams are lucky if they have one guy that's like at 28%.
Yeah.
They have 2 at 35+. And by all accounts, that won't change. I mean, if defenses focus on one, they'll go to the other. And we've seen that with them bouncing back and forth the last 2 weeks. It was Kupp last week. It was Nakua this week. Both guys line up blocks. Nakua is not a hot take at this point. The real deal. I mean, the guy is good at football. It's
Mike,
unreal.
We've got Kyren Williams on IR for the next 4 weeks. So
Yeah,
part of what we were looking at here too was looking at these Rams running backs. This split looked like Darrell Henderson was the guy, but what can you tell us about how they broke out?
He had an edge of about 10 snaps in this game. So I think they did kind of try Freeman and Henderson and see who the hot hand is. And they both came out and played well. They both were racking up rushing yards right out of the gate. Looks like Henderson leaning as the 1A, Freeman as the 1B, and we should expect that until Kyren Williams returns. 0 snaps for Zach Evans.
Yeah,
so
crazy.
he's dropped droppable. He's a non-factor.
Yeah, 0 snaps for Zach Evans, 0 targets for Royce Freeman. So that might be, if you're trying to break the tie between Henderson and Royce Freeman, it would be that Henderson not only found the end zone yesterday, but also got a couple of I think it was 3 targets total for Henderson.
Make sure you keep both rostered too. Again, we talked about this on Fantasy Football Now yesterday as we were talking about it off of Kareem Hunt, which is coming back like after not being with the team the whole offseason and then playing, like hamstring injury, something like that for Henderson. So I would make sure I keep both rostered.
That's a tough one.
On the other side of the game, respect Mike Tomlin and the Steelers. I have no idea they're 4-2. TJ Watt is a freak. He's not from this planet.
Nope.
Unbelievable to be 4-2 right now.
Kenny Pickett, I feel like he matured in the second half. Like he just took a leap forward. He just looked way better in the second half of that game.
He did. I mean, he was definitely short of that 4th down play late in the game.
That's true.
But
overall,
shout out to the Steelers, 4-2. They just keep finding a way. Death, taxes, and Tomlin, baby.
If you were a Steelers fan, you're just pumped to be able to get out with a win in this one.
Oh, my God. Heck yeah. Play the Jaguars next week.
Yep. All right, back here on Fantasy Focus. Today's show was brought to you by Geico. Insurance can be hard. That's why Geico makes it easy with 24/7 claim service and on-the-go policy info in the app. It is easy to Geico, and they are promoting our Week 7 recap. Guys, we are talking about the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, let's talk about this.
I was searching all afternoon. I was like, where is Bijan?
Yeah.
What happened? Why does Bijan have no points? And then I found out Bijan had a headache.
Yeah.
So they gave all the work to Tyler Algier instead of Bijan.
And Cordell Patterson was very busy in this one.
Yeah.
I mean, this was interesting. I mean, we were all frustrated and shaking our heads and wondering if maybe it was just load management sort of game. And then we found out at halftime he wasn't feeling well, so he was just limited in the game. And I thought, all right, that makes sense. You know, sometimes you wake up, you're not feeling good. You have a migraine, whatever it is. Maybe they thought we're still going to use him. It would have been nice to know that information, which would have been great. But it also happens. I mean, like, it's not like they weren't obligated to report that, right? It would have been nice to know, but
I was asking that yesterday in the War Room League. Like, do they have to submit some sort of heads up to the league? Like, hey, he's been added to the injury report as questionable, even after inactives are declared.
Right.
Like, we've seen guys get hurt in warmups, and they'll say, like, so-and-so's been added to the injury report with an ankle injury. He's now questionable to play. So I was surprised there was no notification from the Falcons. The first notification that we got was the halftime report coming out of the first half. I believe it was Christina Pink on the call who said, hey, Arthur Smith said basically, hey, he's not feeling well. We're going to manage it, as you guys just both referenced. He did actually get back on the field in the second half during the team's 2-minute drive late in the game, which they end up scoring the game-winning field goal on. I'm not going scorched earth on Arthur Smith today. I was obviously frustrated during the day yesterday when I had no idea about the fact that there was something going on with Bijan Robinson. At that point, how can you blame us for thinking there was anything up because of the fact that there was no indication?
Yeah, because he was playing.
He was playing,
10
just
snaps,
playing scarcely. It felt at first like, oh, maybe he did. Maybe he was late to a meeting and they benched him for the first 3 drives or something like that. But to all my friends out there that texted me yesterday and are like, thanks for nothing, ESPN, for not notifying us about this before the game. I'm here to tell you that nobody notified anybody about this before the game. So a tough one here. It sucks. I mean, it's the fantasy trap. This happens like once every few years, something weird. It's like this is like T. Higgins last year, who like plays, but then was active but played like 2 snaps. So it happens on occasion. It's a fantasy trap. It sucks. I guess the only takeaway I have is Arthur Smith say after the game, it's something that we're going to look into or evaluate or monitor. So hopefully it's not something that's going to be
more than a headache.
My inference on that was that he's probably just saying like he's sort of protecting the player and the team in this regard. Like, yeah, we'll keep an eye on it for future weeks. I hope it's not a big issue going forward, but obviously for yesterday, you got bit in the butt.
We've had players that have played with like chronic migraine issues, and that has been a thing in the past. So hopefully that's not a thing.
Yeah, I mean, it happens. I've been there. I've had days where I've done this podcast with a migraine. Like, it happens, and it's really hard to like. I can't imagine playing football. Like, if
noticeable,
if you're there and you start getting them, and sometimes they just pop up. Yeah. And you see, like, you ever see floaters and stuff? I get them once, very rare. But that's what could have happened. Like a half hour before the game, you're smiling.
I don't know if I'm allowed to laugh or not.
I feel for the guy if that's what it was. I mean, that's terrible and it's unfortunate. And I can't. My reactions on like social were like really like no, whatever, explicative that, and this is nonsense. We should have known. He should have told us. Don't defend him. All that. I'm like, man, it's life. Like sometimes you get a migraine and you're limited, or it's not. I don't know. I feel like we've been there before, and it's justifiable.
Absolutely.
So I don't know.
I'm just gonna fade from social media and just like never turn back, and I'm not sure my life will be any worse for it.
No, oh my goodness, the spam on the X right now is unbelievable. It's intolerable. I used to love that app. Big part of the building of my career.
Totally
awful.
Yeah.
I mean, what's going on? It's
no one
frustrating.
knows. Yeah,
love it in its heyday, but it's going the wrong way.
Can you tell me what's going on? Because I thought that without having Bijan Robinson, we were going to get maybe more Kyle Pitts this week, but instead it was back to what we had been expecting.
That was one of our red zone questions. Was will he
got
catch
that one
4
right?
passes? It's like one of the only ones we got this week. It was a rough red zone week. Yeah,
Tough
3
red zone
catches?
If you know there was going to be no Bijan Robinson, would you not take the over on 4 catches for Kyle Pitts? I mean, come on.
I don't know. This offense, I have no idea. I mean, what a quirky game. Did you guys?
Desmond Ridder,
by the way,
like the fumbles and
he fumbled 3 times,
tough.
all in the red zone.
Yeah.
He lost all 3 of them.
Yeah.
By the way, one of them was him sauntering into the end zone. And I used the word saunter intentionally there. Freaking sprint to the goal line, man. Just finish the job. Great play by Antoine Winfield to knock it out. I mean, that's an incredible play right there. But, this Falcons offense is at times very, very maddening. And I am totally not talking about the Bijan part here because even putting that aside for a second, like just a weird, quirky day again, Drake London nearly has a touchdown, by the way, as well. That crazy play in which just everything yesterday was weird about that game. And yet, you know what? They're the only team in the division with a winning record.
Yeah, but they scored 1 touchdown, so one of their skill guys must have caught it or ran it in, right?
Yeah,
no,
right.
Desmond Ridder ran it in.
Oh,
So,
right.
and
Of
if had he not fumbled the other one, it would have been 2
rushing
Desmond Ridder
touchdowns,
rushing
yes.
touchdowns. So
Let's
this
move.
offense so frustrating, but this is what we got ourselves into.
Should we move on to greener pastures?
Let's
Different
do it.
game?
This
Please.
was such a weird game.
Best
Let's
game of
talk
the
about
day.
this.
Yeah.
Colts and Browns ended exactly as we were expecting,
Right.
39-38. We
Score
knew it was
got me
going to
or
be
no?
a back and
Yeah,
forth like
Minshew
this.
just slicing up this elite
Meh.
Browns defense.
Name a list of every player in Colts franchise history with 2 passing and 2 rushing touchdowns in a game.
Well, Peyton Manning's
I mean,
not
think
gonna
about
be
all
on
the
there.
great
No.
quarterbacks though they've had, right?
Andrew
Johnny
Luck.
Unitas, Andrew
Yeah.
Luck,
Oh,
Peyton
yeah.
Manning. I
I'm just going to say it's 1.
was going to say Jim Sorgi. And the answer, of course,
Jim Harbaugh.
is Gardner Minshew.
Gardner Minshew.
Yeah, I mean,
Wow.
amazing. And just, by the way, the Browns had allowed 3 offensive touchdowns in their first 5 games.
That's bad.
The Colts had 4 yesterday, so I really don't think this is. And by the way, the Browns defense still had like 17 fantasy points because
ridiculous.
Myles Garrett is a walking play game plan season.
It was so weird because the
career
Browns
wrecker.
The Browns allowed the fewest points and yards, but they didn't have many forced turnovers.
Yeah.
And it was like the exact opposite in this game. Minshew had, you know how many top 20 fantasy weeks he had coming into this game?
0?
0.
That's
That was his first one, and he just
That's
goes off. He's QB3
unreal.
going in
Score, that's
pending.
hilarious.
Against the Browns. Like
Against
the
the
one team
Browns,
you were, no
right.
one was going to
Yeah.
stream him
And that
against.
was, I think that's where I was going before. It was like the Browns defense kind of came back to earth, and the Broncos went back to the median as well. Like
Yeah.
they're not as
yeah.
bad as we thought. The Browns are not as good as we thought. It's kind of that's how this league works. There's adjustments, and teams kind of work their way back toward the middle. So we saw that reversion to some extent here with the Browns defense.
I
So
wanna
we
ask
should
you-
talk. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Daniel.
I want to ask you about this, though, because the one thing for me in this is we've been talking all, like the last couple weeks, about Jonathan Taylor
Yep.
and Zach Moss and this split. Mike, you've been telling us about how these snaps have been working out. How did they work out here in this game?
Yeah, one snap edge to Zach Moss. He had 34. It was 33
crazy,
for
right?
Taylor. 21 touches, though, for Taylor to 19 for Moss. And it turns out Taylor might be better. He about doubled him up in yardage and had a touchdown in this game. This, again, is going... Like, it's so hard to predict things. It's kind of going how we called this one. He was limited at first, and then it was an even share. And it's still... He hasn't really separated in snaps, but... He's starting to build an edge in terms of touches and production. Taylor is very clearly a good football player.
He's a good
We're
football
seeing that.
Yeah, he is.
As it turns out.
So there was a moment yesterday. So the Colts were wearing these helmets they'd never worn before.
I
These,
thought they were sharp. I like them.
I liked them too. Black helmet, blue shoe, look sort of like Duke vibes. And they also were wearing different jerseys than they had previously worn. And at one point I saw the game, and this is very early in the game. Zach Moss gets a carry, and they have a little C right there, right above his heart, like on his left shoulder. And I was like, there's no way that they just paid Jonathan Taylor $42 million. and have talked about how much he means to the franchise, and they've literally named Zach Moss one of their captains. Like, are you kidding me? As if this couldn't be any more difficult to figure out. It turned out that every player had that C on their pack. It was for the Colts.
That's what it is.
But I was like, wow. So, but yes, it's not a separation yet for Jonathan Taylor because of the snap edge, but just the production, obviously, a big difference maker there. He looked more like the Jonathan Taylor we know.
Yeah, slight edge in carries and targets the last 2 weeks, and more fantasy production. He's the 1A for sure, and the guy we feel better about.
This isn't the only split that happened here, though, guys, because we've been watching, and Field, I want to give you a shout-out for this. Like, you mentioned Josh Downs a couple weeks ago. We've been watching Josh Downs.
He's good.
Look fantastic. I was really hopeful that Michael Pittman's stat line is so weird in this because what it should really read is 1 catch for 8 yards and then 1 more catch for 75 yards and a touchdown that he definitely should have been tackled on.
I know. And by the way, there was a flag at the end of that play, and you're like, no, it goes back. It was a taunting penalty, so it was all good in the end. But
has Josh Downs
both of
taken
them
over as the guy that you
I
want?
don't think so. No, the target share is still certainly heavily favoring Michael Pittman. And I know this is going to sound weird on a day in which Josh Downs has 5 for 125 and a touchdown, but the big play upside certainly also leans towards Michael Pittman Jr. The first 100-yard game for Josh Downs this season, 2 catches, 65 yards, and a touchdown on the opening drive for Downs. But I'll just say this, like, I think about it through the lens of a 16-team league, which is where I first rostered Josh Downs, and it's like, you don't think twice about starting him. He's starting to creep into that, like, should be on benches in 10-team leagues, maybe starting in 12-team leagues in which you start 3 wide receivers, 14-team leagues, lock it in. Like, good football player, and we talked about the number of snaps the Colts ran recently. It was like 84 in one game. It should get down to, like, mid-60s. They put a ton of snaps again yesterday. It's so weird.
Yeah, it is, and it is a fast-paced offense. So they were a little over their head. They should still be near the leaders in snaps, assuming they're competent offensively, which they were yesterday against a good defense. So yeah, I think Downs is going to be a flex option again. No teams on a bye, so you're right. In deeper 12-team leagues, he's going to be on the flex rider this week. By the way, Pittman's targets down a little bit, 7 or fewer in 3 of 4, but he's had some big games. I still think he's fine. I still think he's a fringe wide receiver 2 at this point. Not quite the wide receiver 1 he looked like right out of the gate. More of a 2 right now, but he's still the preferred option.
Colts are the Saints next week, so a tough test for them, at least on the defense side of the ball.
You may have said this. I apologize because I was looking up a stat. So
okay, Matthew.
That's why I'm
not listening as usual.
But Josh Downs has 13 or more fantasy points in 4 of his last 5 weeks.
He does.
Good.
Like he is, the idea that he is only rostered. Is it?
Look at that.
He's only rostered in 34% of leagues. It's crazy to me. He definitely, like we've talked about, one of those guys that you need to add off the waivers.
And they're not quite the Rams in terms of saturation, but it's basically 2 receivers that matter in that offense.
Absolutely.
Alec Pierce is the Marquez Valdez-Scantling for them.
Dude, but with that even, like, Michael Pittman's usage is so weird because it's like he'll have 14 targets one week and then 5 the next week. And a lot of times that usage is just it's tough to figure out. One of those guys that you got to start and just hope that it works out for you. So, fingers crossed. I would love to see more Jonathan Taylor, like, kind of take advantage of this and
I
have
think
a
in
little
time
less
he
Zach
will.
Moss.
Yeah, I think he'll continue to take more and more control there.
Yep. All right, back here on Fantasy Focus, Field Yates, Mike Clay, Daniel Dopp, and we are going to continue this. Brought to you by Geico. Insurance can be hard, guys. That's why Geico makes it easy with 24/7 claim service and on-the-go policy info in the app. It's easy to Geico. Guys, let's talk about this. National Tight End Day. This was a fun one because I felt like we had a lot of conversation coming into this.
They all celebrated.
And everybody, it felt like, got in the end zone except for Sam Laporta. But when you look at this, we already talked about, obviously, the 2 big guys. Mark Andrews and Travis Kelce. They were fantastic. But it wasn't just them. Darren Waller found a way to get in the end zone. We've been waiting to see this. If you've been a Darren Waller manager, this is what you have been hoping for, and he did it with Tyrod Taylor under center.
Yeah, first game over 20 fantasy points for Waller this season. But it was still good. I mean, that's useful. He was useful against the Bills the prior Sunday as well. Maybe. Ooh.
What?
Is it the Darren Waller Rod Taylor connection?
That's where I was going with this. I was going to say when Daniel Jones is healthy, he has to return as the starter, or does he?
Wow. Oh, don't you put that into existence.
Look at this. Mike Clay, noted Eagles fan, trying to stir the pot to the Giants. They play the Jets this weekend.
At this point, you have to think about it. I mean, that offense is. They are dead last in passing touchdowns over the last 3.5 years.
There's no way.
3.5 years. They're
Don't
dead
you
last.
think Tyrod Taylor would look good? We didn't talk about this earlier, and we could remind me, mental reminder tomorrow, Deshaun Watson conversation, because, man,
Yeah, they say he's starting next week, but
I know.
Man, I don't
Imagine
know.
if that Browns defense had a quarterback to be able to help him out a little bit.
Well, imagine if they had Tyrod Taylor there right now.
Seriously.
Former Brown.
Why not Jacoby Brissett even? That guy's not getting used, and he was fantastic for them
When
last
does
year.
he start starting games in Washington? But yeah, I mean, tight end day was awesome. Darren Waller. I think Daniel Jones is going to start once he gets back to full strength, even if Mike is
Not
suggesting
going to be
otherwise.
rushing him back after this point. The way they played much better the last couple weeks.
So, but I would say that so guys that balled out amongst the tight ends include the 2 stars at the top. You mentioned Darren Waller. We talked about Dallas Goedert had a big night for Philly. He's been heating up of late, huh?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He was a
really
big part
good.
of the offense. Yeah, it's coming at DeVonta Smith's expense a little bit.
That's
but
what it is.
Not to mention DeAndre Swift has been terrific, too. They're getting so much out of him. So,
Yeah.
But, yeah, he was awesome as well. But, yeah, I think I know where you're going with this, the one I want to talk about.
Dalton Kincaid.
Yeah,
How
let's
about
go.
this?
What's happening?
So, interesting. So, the Patriots are obviously going to try to do their best, take away what you do best. And I think this year, because Josh Allen's running the ball so much less frequently, probably the most potent part of the Bills' passing attack would be, things vertically down the field. Gabe Davis has been very productive, and then Stephon Diggs has been an absolute animal all season. And then yesterday it was like, yeah, you want to dink and dunk your way against us? Go ahead. And by the way, it worked for New England, right? I mean, they ended up scoring Buffalo did 25 points, but I think they were at 10 points until like 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter. So Dalton Kincaid benefited dramatically. Like, I'm trying to think of who the perfect analog was. This was like TJ Hawkinson style from the Vikings all last season. Just dump him the ball off 7, 8, 9, 10 yards at a time. That worked well. 8 catches on 8 targets, Mike.
You got a career highs in targets, catches, and yards in this game. And remember, he missed the game. And before that, he left the game injured with a concussion. Before that, his last full game, also had a target share of at least 20%. So this is 2 in a row now. Kind of interesting. Could they have perhaps said, all right, we're going to take it slow with this kid, first-round pick, tight end, the first month of the season, and then start to, release him into the wild, if you will, and put him on the fantasy radar. So it's interesting, though. His snap and route participation actually a little below his season averages, which is the only thing that I found to be a little bit of a red flag. But the key really is when he's running routes, is he going to be targeted? That was not the case early in the season. It was in this one. So I'm feeling more confident in him. I think he should be on your radar and waivers. This is a super talented player in a pass-heavy, high-scoring Buffalo Bills offense, and he's out there in a lot of leagues. Just scoop him up. Maybe he could be a tight end 1 down the stretch.
I would love it if that happens. I do want to ask you a question about him, though.
Please do, yeah.
Because I don't feel like he just had this tight end room to himself. Dawson Knox was still there. It's not like Dawson Knox was a scratch.
I think that he's basically a big wide receiver.
You think that's where it's at?
Like, for utilization purposes, it's Stephon Diggs,
Dalton
clearly.
Kincaid, you're talking
Well,
about.
Kincaid,
they're both running routes from the slot quite a bit, but they just don't have a third receiver, and they're not using a third receiver pretty much at all. They're rotating 3 guys in there occasionally, but it's been Kincaid and Knox out there pretty much full time. So I don't know if it really matters what their position designation is, other than for fantasy. They're just on the field all the time.
I might literally be making this up, which a lot of stuff goes through my head. Am I misremembering this, or do I feel like someone in the Bills talked recently about how, like, yeah, when Dalton's on the field, Dalton Kincaid, we're kind of treating it like teams are basically playing us in nickel, right? Like, they're treating him like he's a wide receiver, which, by the way, that stuff happens often. When you run a lot of 12 personnel, teams have to make that choice.
Yeah,
and when you've got a guy
100%.
who's athletic like he is. So anyways, yes, you're right, Daniel. It's a 2 tight end room. Can it actually work for fantasy purposes?
I hope so.
I think if it can, it's going to work for one of them, and I think that one's going to end up being Dalton Kincaid.
Yeah, I don't think teams are. I mean, I could confirm this, but you're right. Most teams are going to be in nickel, and you're not going to play Buffalo in like 4-3 base or something. Like,
right.
Put an extra line. You want a linebacker out there against a third receiver or Dalton Kincaid? I don't think so. So, yeah, you're right. Yeah.
I was just curious about that. Sam
Bills
Laporta
play
also
Thursday
didn't
night.
look terrible. Yeah, they do. Short week there, so you're hoping for that. Any other tight ends that you like? Taysom Hill had a week here. Is this going to be one of those, like, we always got to mention it whenever Taysom has a week, but I'm not adding him in a 10-team league.
It's a Juwan Johnson thing. Juwan Johnson's been out. Yeah. Taysom Hill's been playing tight end. If Johnson's back,
thank you.
Best quarterback in the Saints, question mark?
But
Just kidding.
Yeah, if Johnson's going to be out, then Hill, he's on the fantasy radar.
That's there. All right, wrapping up Fantasy Focus here. Daniel Dopp, Mike Clay, and Field Yates. Guys, we got Monday Night Football to talk about, but I want to say one thing first.
Okay.
Shout out to you, Field. You got a Jake Bobo touchdown.
Let's go.
For everybody. Let's make Jake Bobo a thing, please.
How about this? I mean, seriously, like, if you were starting a Seahawks roster from scratch today and you had your pick of rookie wide receivers on their roster, Jake Bobo, Jaxson Smith-Njigba. You make the call, Mike.
Jake Bobo.
I'm gonna go with the guy that starts with J.
Yeah.
Jaxson Smith-Njigba. But
you know
Bobo
the best
looks like the real deal.
I mean, listen, everybody knows I got some skin in the game there. Couldn't be more proud of him. From my high school, his mom was my wife's coach growing up, so like we absolutely have loved following his journey. He's a legit football player. This is not just a feel-good story. He had one of the best catches of the season yesterday. He's making a real impact for the Seahawks. For fantasy purposes, I think the more likely scenario is that if DK Metcalf continues to miss time, we're talking more about Jaxson Smith-Njigba's fantasy value because Njigba did find the end zone yesterday. I bet Mike has the snaps, or at least some sense of
I was going to ask you, which Seahawks receiver actually led the team in snaps played?
Oh, my God. It's definitely like, is Penny Hart still there?
No, it's Jake Bobo.
Jake Bobo?
Yeah, Bobo was one. Yeah, I believe Lockett was 2 or 3. Those guys were 2 and 3.
Do you want to hear something funny, by the way? Jake Bobo, his legal first name, Jackson.
Oh.
No way.
Yeah. So they've got Jaxson Smith-Njigba, Jackson Bobo,
and Jackson
2
Bobo.
rookie wide receivers, both scored touchdowns yesterday.
Oh, I
First round pick,
And
undrafted free
one
agent.
of us 3 started him in fantasy.
Yeah, I know. Mike Clay actually started
Steve
Jake
Blager.
Bobo.
He was my emergency bench hold for Metcalf. Metcalf was out, plugged in Bobo, got a cool
By the way,
12 points or
no more than that. 4 for
18 points.
61. Yeah, I was gonna say. The best part is, by the way, is that like, so I actually have I have Jake on a couple. Like it's karma for me, right? Like he's my feel good team. Like I've got him in a guillotine league, and I'm like, guillotine league. Like you're obviously turning over rosters every single week, and there's some amazing top end players left over. I will never drop Jake Bobo in that guillotine.
No way.
Never.
That's like me with like Bryce Butler and like Boston Scott for so long.
Yeah.
Like there were like guys like that. I've always kept stashed. Love those
Oh,
guys.
what was the third round running back from Miami you loved? Arizona State.
Yes. It was his name is, and you and Matthew used to argue about
Temple.
him all the time.
Kalen Balazs.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
That was the
There we go.
opposite. No matter what,
I know.
would not at him.
I know.
I'd be like, I have no running back. There's none left except him. Nope, don't want him.
All right, let's talk Monday Night Football here really quickly, just
Wrap
to
it up,
preview
yeah.
it. CMC going to play in this game. We got news. Obviously, Deebo Samuel going to be out a couple games, so we will be without Deebo. If you had to make a move in order to get somebody to potentially play in place of CMC, now you don't have to worry about it. Unless something happens, we know he's going to be out there this week.
He's good. I'd say like the takeaway for CMC is probably like, how does he look?
Right.
And do they alter his
limited?
utilization at all?
Does Elijah Mitchell come in and get some more work? Do they?
Exactly.
Yeah,
But
Jordan
does he
Mason.
play?
I mean, he might play less than usual, get half the carries, and get 6-7 targets. That's still enough to be a no-brainer start in fantasy.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, he's still going to be, he may not. Who was the highest scoring running back this week again? He may not be Gus Edwards, but he'll be,
Stop it.
He could.
Was it
still
really
be very
Gus
effective.
Deontay Foreman, right?
Foreman, yes.
Yeah,
Who didn't even
3
talk about,
touchdowns.
by the way.
Oh,
Deontay
my
Foreman,
God.
shout out to you. We'll
What a
talk
game.
more about that when they play Sunday night in a good matchup against the Chargers. But, mad respect Deontay Foreman. That's on the Tuesday topic as well, because I want to give him his flowers.
Yeah,
his violets.
we need to talk about him because he had a bad Achilles tear and was out of the league for a while.
Yeah.
And it was a kind of a surprising comeback story.
It's been great.
And he's been awesome the last couple of years, despite facing so many heavy boxes. I feel like he lost weight in a good way. Like he just looks good. Like he looked really good in that game.
I think the big problem for him is and yesterday defied this, but limited passing game value, no special teams value. So teams are like, okay, you're the easy running back to make inactive this week.
Yeah, but he still had 4 targets in this game.
Yeah,
which was
until
nice,
yesterday
so.
he defied it, right?
Yeah, he's gonna. And now we have to keep an eye on him though, because Roshan Johnson, if he gets back next week, he's going to be a factor. But Foreman looking good.
Back to the 49ers, just keeping an eye on whether CMC plays 60% of the snaps, 80, 95, we'll see there. And then for Minnesota, I really think the storyline of this game tonight is Minnesota, even without Justin Jefferson, is a very fantasy-friendly offense. How much is that stymied against a San Francisco defense that we know is insanely good? If you look numerically, though, and Mike will tell you, they're more efficient than they are, I guess, dominant for fantasy purposes because they just play so many snaps because they're beating the bag out of teams so often that the numbers might be a little bit misleading in terms of how many points they're actually surrendering per game in fantasy.
Yeah, I'm with you. And also watching these 2 receivers from Minnesota, can they both establish themselves as fantasy starters? Addison, I think we're already kind of there, and we'll see in KJ Osborne.
All right, Field and I are taking the 49ers. Mike's got the Vikings. We love you guys. Thank you so
right.
much for hanging out with us. We'll see you on Tuesday.
That's not true.
What? You want to say it? You want to say the positive thing?
What? What's that?
You said I'm not allowed to say it anymore.
Oh, yeah. Don't forget to love each other.
That's right.